The Dramatist Guild is the National Association of Playwrights, Composers, Lyricists, and Librettists. For the first time in a generation, our industry is undergoing a tectonic shift. If you're not a member, join today. Learn more at our website.
Hello, I am Joey Stocks. I'm the Director of Publications at the Dramatist Guild of America and the editor of the Dramatist magazine. My co-hosts tonight are both DG Council members and Publications Committee members. Please help me welcome Amanda Green and Christine Joy Johnson. Hello and welcome again.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm so happy we're back.
Yeah. Nice.
Me too. It feels weird. It feels like it's been years since we've done this almost.
I know.
I was typing up stuff today, notes today, and I was like, oh, this is so much fun. I forgot. This is really great. We got to do this more often.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yes, it's nice to see your faces.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for the people who are joining us. I see names I recognize. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I think we should just roll right ahead. Is that good with you?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. So I don't think we've done this before, but our special guest is also, well, I'll just introduce him first. Charles Busch has forged a unique place in the world of entertainment as playwright, actor, director, novelist, cabaret performer, and drag legend. He is the author and star of over 25 plays, including The Divine Sister, The Lady in Question, Red Scare on Sunset, The Tribute Artist, and Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, one of the longest running plays in the history of off-Broadway. His play, The Tale of the Allergist's Wife, ran for 777 performances on Broadway, won the Outer Critics Circle John L. Gassner Award for Playwriting, received a Tony nomination for Best Play, and is the longest running Broadway comedy of the past 25 years. His most current play is The Confession of Lily Dare. Welcome, and I plagiarized that directly from your website.
Hi, Charles. Can't hear you, my friend.
Oh, we've got you muted.
So no,
Terry, can you assist us?
This is really going to put a crimp in our stuff. Oh, lovely.
That helps. Great. Yes, this will all be done.
Do it in show.
Do it in mine.
Show.
Still muted.
You see the
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
There we go.
I've been silenced before.
How are you, Charles?
Oh, well, I'm going to take off my glasses here so I don't have to read anything. I'm just marvelous here in the seclusion on Bank Street. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We're so happy to see you. Have you ever written a silent role for yourself?
Ooh.
I wrote a silent movie. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. No. Yeah. It was a little short thing we did and shot that looked like a kind of a 1920 costume picture. Yeah, it was shot in Central Park. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
It was a good exercise too. To in a certain sense, I've written a couple of screenplays, and it's always been a bit of a challenge for me because I'm so dialogue driven, being a playwright, and I don't know if I've really mastered it quite. The screenplay writing where you really want to tell the story in image as much as in dialogue, and we have a new movie that we're going to shoot in October, an original screenplay, and it's very dialogue driven. But then those are the movies that I like as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same.
Are you ready for this lightning round of 10 questions?
Do I get to plead the fifth?
You do, but it's not going to make for a very good material. But
No. No, Amanda. No, Christine. No, Joe. No. All right, shoot. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
What must you have in order to begin a new work?
A character.
Very cool.
What must you have in the room while you're writing it?
Gosh, I'm trying to be sort of, also glib, but but really, what do I need? Metaphorically or literally? I mean, literally, I do need a glass of water, but I guess I don't know. I don't need quiet particularly. I was born in New York City, and things are too quiet. It gets me nervous. A little noise level on the street to go to sleep at night. Yeah, no, I guess I'm flunking out on this second question.
No, it's all right.
No.
That's totally valid. And continuing this this line of questioning, what do you need in order to finish that work?
Oh, well, I always like to have an ending. I always like to know where I'm going. Sometimes that ending changes, but I like to know just before I've started where the destination is. I like getting on the train at Grand Central, and I don't get off to White Plains. Yeah. I like to know where I'm going.
Does it come to you all at once? Do you go you have a character, and to get the beginning and the end in your head, even if it changes, how is that a separate process? I mean, do you take a few months of walking around and thinking about it, or?
Well, I do have a kind of a process that I've always done. Really, is I write a lot of notes down before I begin. I'm terrified, as any writer is, of the blank page or the blank computer screen, and I'll do anything to avoid just nothing. So I write a lot of notes, and keep it in a certain file on the computer, and it's everything from just notes. Often, since so many of the plays I've written have been vehicles for myself as an actor, who I want to play, or if it's a movie genre, what that is, and then I've written a lot of plays for a specific group of people. I continue to do that. And I love it. So I often, the second thing I write on that list is a list of people that I'd like to hang out with, who I love and who just be fun to be with, and then I try to find a story to encap that will take all these people, and so that already starts giving me so many ideas, and then just a little bit, a fragment of dialogue, a line, a moment that I'd like to play, different things, and I accumulate this, and then eventually I start cutting and pasting it in order, and an outline gradually begins, and then I'm not so scared anymore, and then I to continue to avoid that blank screen, I'll write in hand just a couple lines. So at least when I start, I got something, because otherwise it's just scary. Scary. So yeah, so that's, I don't know if that's the answer to the question. That's how I start. So but I do know on this little outline that that's kind of somehow magically appears. I do know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to get, and a vague idea how I'm going to get there. But that's how I am in real life, because I always know where I want to go, but I have only a very vague idea how I'm going to reach it.
Yes. Well, I forfeit my question because I thought that was awesome. So let's move on.
It was good. It was good.
Okay. So wait, so as a writer, what have you not done but want to try?
I've not done. I'd like to try. Well, I'm at a place in my life now that I'm 65 years old. I know I don't look it at all, but I am, and taking all my pensions, and I don't know. A few years ago, I kind of went through a rather depressing period of awful just rumination, and I was really worse than John Simon had ever been to me about myself.
Oh,
and I just,
that's
yeah,
sad.
it was really, you know, a bad period for me. It lasted about 2 years. Uh, and I thought, oh, I'm never going to be able to write that really serious, complex play, that I thought that one day I would write when I was ready. And I think I've kind of decided just to let those pretensions go and to kind of accept where my talents do lie. And this is who I am. And, you know, and maybe I'll surprise myself still, but I think I've kind of, in a certain sense, given up those fantasies.
What's a common misconception about you?
Well, there are two misconceptions about my personality. So, I mean, I would imagine some people might, I don't know if they think about me at all, it would be that I was either, you know, some very, very outrageous queen who's, you know, bitchy and saying all sorts of, you know, insulting things. And that's not me at all. And I've disappointed people when they've met me and they've wanted that to be. But the other misconception about me, which I find even worse, is when people say, oh, oh, Charles, he's surprised, he's so quiet and gentle, and oh, I'm not that dreary. No, I'm kind of I mean, I guess we all are a mixture of different things. But with me, it really is. I'm such a mixture of everything. You know, I'm young, old. I'm male. I'm female. I'm the life of the party, and I'm a contented recluse. So I'm all those things. You know, but yeah, sometimes it bugs me when people either just assume I'm one or the other. So I'm everything, darling. Everything.
All right. What is the best writing advice you've ever given or received?
Advice I've given or received. Well, I gave some advice recently. Somebody said, you know, what do I do if I've been reworking this play over and over and over, and I get just, you know, it's been going on for years. I said, give up. I mean, sometimes you just have to give it up. It's not going to work. You're not going to get there. You know, I mean, some things it's just not going to work. It's, you know,
close the door.
It left the building. You know, and you can, you know, talk things. I have learned, you know, it's a slightly different thing, but you know, if you talk too much about a play, you won't write it. You kind of, you know, you talked it out. You don't need it anymore.
Right.
But yeah, but sometimes, I mean, I think if you could work on a show for years, and if it's just not good, it's just not going to work. It's just not, you know, move on. But I don't think anyone's ever given me advice ever. I hope this shirt hides the chip on my shoulder. I've rarely ever been given advice to maybe give up. Yeah. No, very few mentors. No.
Okay. What production do you wish you had seen?
Oh, well, I guess, you know, like so many people, I suppose if I had to choose one thing go in the time machine would be to see Laura Taylor in The Glass Menagerie. Because
Same. That's mine.
The performance that changed acting and brought it to the modern world. And, you know, I find her so fascinating. I was always just my overwhelming interest always has been theater history. More, you know, I'm associated often with movie history because my plays often had their roots in movie genres. But my really big interest starting from childhood was theater history. And I'm so lucky that like Amanda, you know, I grew up in New York City, and I just spent my whole youth at the Library of Performing Arts, just in their research room at 15, just poring over these, you know, enormous heavy scrapbooks that they would have of clippings of Catherine Cornell and Eva Le Gallienne and Laurette Taylor. you know, I just, my aunt, you know, raised me. I've talked so much about her, and she gave me a book when I guess I was about 12, and it was Great Stars of the American Stage by Daniel Blum, and it was a big coffee table book, a big book, and it was old by the time I got it. She got it secondhand. I think it went from Lillian Russell to a newcomer. Maureen Stapleton was the last new person at the end of the book, and but I was so fascinated by these pictures of these different actors and actresses, and I really do think that in a way I was more fascinated by them than the movie stars, Betty Davis and Norma Shearer, who I loved as well. But I think I was more interested in the theater stars because there was a mystery, since you couldn't actually ever see them on the 4:30 movie. You know, they often didn't want to make films or made very few films. So I could really imagine their performances, imagine their voices in a way that made them more powerful in my mind. Big influence on me.
I love it. I love it. Charles, what are you working on next?
Well, I was so busy. I tell you, the pandemic was okay for me the first 2 months because I was so busy, and now I'm a little. I wrote this screenplay. It's tentatively called The Sixth Reel, and because I met a rich financier, and anyway, all the money together to make this little film, this feature, and so I had a deadline. I had to get it done, and that's always helpful. So I wrote it, and I'm so excited about this. It's a wacky contemporary caper comedy to star myself and Julie Halston.
Fabulous.
And it's a wacky pair, kooks, and yes, and so Carl Andrus, who I think you're going to be hearing, we co-wrote it together, and we're going to co-direct it together.
Wow.
We start shooting October 5th if everything continues to go like we hope with the world, or New York, let's say.
That's thrilling.
Exciting.
That's
Thrilling.
Okay, our final question was submitted by Diane Reeves. What is an important non-creative area about which a new writer should become knowledgeable?
Non-creative?
Something non-creative that is good for a writer to know about.
Well, what do I think? I mean, I suppose one should just know about the world we live in, but I prefer not to. I prefer living in my ivory tower.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, Diane. I'd like to give you good advice. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that question.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Just, you know,
Cooking would be good. You've become a cook, right? So you.
Sorta, yeah. Yeah, I was afraid. I literally was afraid of the kitchen for so long, and then, a number of years ago, there was a period. I was doing the play, The Divine Sister. That was a long run. It was about a year, and I was eating so badly, and I didn't really feel very well. And I thought, oh, when this play is over, I need to just not eat just these stupid like TV dinners and things, and I'm gonna have to cook. And I started watching a lot of TV, Food Network shows, and so I just started experimenting, and I just find it enjoyable. But I'm still, I'm a rank amateur, but I enjoy sort of pretending I'm on a show. I live alone, and I pretend I'm on a show, and I throw together disparate ingredients that I find in the pantry, and I create something. Then I judge it. I play it, and I judge it. I really do. I'm not being campy. I look at it, and I often think, I don't know. I think I'm in the bottom three, and I face elimination. I don't think I'm going to get kicked off, but I'm definitely in bottom three. And then sometimes I think, I don't know. I think I'm in it to win it. Yeah. But it is a good creative outlet, and there have been days when I've had a not a terribly successful day writing, you know, or just procrastinated and just couldn't really just get into it as much as I wanted to. And I find at the end of the day, cooking myself something helps me a little bit. Yeah.
I love that. I'm a late comer to the cooking too, so I'm with you there. I never expected to find any joy in it whatsoever, and I kind of do now.
Yeah.
I'm not any good, but I like it.
There was a period a few years ago, about 3 years ago, where my sister was having some health issues, so I had her move in with me. She lives on 74th Street, but I had her come down here to the Bohemian Quarter and live with me. And so I had to cook for the two of us. And I had to kind of fatten her up because she was way too thin. And that was a real effort to try to, you know, really come up with interesting things to plump her up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was good for me. Honestly, on the most profound level, it was good for me for the first time to have to think of somebody else other than myself. I mean, really, you know, it was good, and I'm very proud that I was there at a very important moment, and then I stepped up to the plate and did it.
And
Yeah.
Thought of somebody else's needs. Thought of somebody else's needs first. Yeah. Because it's, you know, a creative artist, you know, it is a rather self-centered place. I mean, at least you know, for me, it rather is, you know, just, and it is good to try to think of somebody else, at least for a little while.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did it. You did the 10 questions. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, drink.
So,
You're moving on to the next round, Charles.
Yes. Yes, you're not being eliminated.
Oh,
So
good.
congratulations. So before we bring on our other guests, we wanted to ask you how you got started as a writer. Rumor has it you were studying acting at Northwestern. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was always writing. And I guess my first full-length play I wrote, I think I was maybe 12.
Wow.
12, yeah. And it was kind of people were kind of impressed by it at the theater camp I went to, but it really was a complete ripoff of one half of The Heiress and one half of The Barretts of Wimpole Street, which I knew the movies, you know, so I'd kind of cobbled them together, and that was my first play. So I was always writing, and you know, I was so unscholastic in school. I was just really invisible for the most part, and there was one point when I was in 8th grade. I was doing so badly that I was going to be left back, and that's when I moved to New York City from Westchester to live with my aunt to straighten me out. But it is interesting that you know, on the sly, I was writing full-length plays and stuff, and yet all these teachers thought that I was so unexceptional. So yeah, but I was always writing, and then but acting was just such an obsession, even though I wasn't really very good because I almost wanted it too much in a certain sense. You know, the desire was greater than my abilities as a teenager. But so I didn't really. It's funny that I was doing all this writing, but didn't really ever think of being a writer. I just wanted to be an actor. And then the big thing for me was seeing Charles Ludlam and the Ridiculous Theatrical Company when I maybe was 18, let's say. And that was the big change for me, to see that someone who created roles for himself and could create an entire new theatrical world for himself that was away from showbiz, you know, because I knew that I was not going to do well in showbiz, that I would have to find a different way in to have a satisfying artistic life. So I got that pretty early.
Pretty early, you came to that conclusion.
19.
Wow. That's
Wow.
great.
Then I started writing, and so then in college, after having seen Ludlum and other so I don't know what we call them, experimental theater people, Jeff Weiss, different people that I saw at the performance group, all these things. Ludlum was, of course, made the biggest impact, but the whole idea of that you could, you know, just away from show business, you could just create and have a company and create roles and that are exact, you know, that suit you. I just really wanted to be the best of what I could do, and I was so discouraged in college at Northwestern. I was in the theater department, but I was really never cast in a play, and there really was nothing I wanted to play. It was so confusing to know, which way to go. I knew I had to be in the theater and I had to be on stage, but how do I do this? And yet I knew that there are all these female characters that I was entertaining my roommate Ed, in our dorm room, and he even said one time, "You should be doing that on stage." I said, "How do I do that on stage?" And then of course, seeing Ludlum gave me think, "Oh, there is a way of doing that."
Yeah.
So
That's really, really empowering to have that model.
Yeah. And I was also, tell you, I was so blessed that I never, ever had the fear of what will people think. I just, that just has never occurred to me. And that's the most freeing thing. I don't know where I got that from, but I just said, so when I did drag for the first time in college, I wrote a play called Sister Act. This was 1975 or 76, so it was way, decades before that wonderful movie. But yeah, it was about a traveling freak show, and I wrote the two main characters for my roommate Ed and I to play, and they were a pair of squabbling Siamese twin showgirls named Hester and Esther. And so we put it on in college at the student auditorium, and it just, even there, the idea of drag, of playing in drag, I didn't see it as an act of bravery. I didn't see it as a big deal. It just was didn't occur to me, other than just, wouldn't this be great and fun to do, and I think I'll be good at this. Yeah, a big question I will say is just, and maybe this goes back a little bit to the 10 questions, is just one thing I've always thought was important was to come at things in a positive way and think because I do a lot of different things. As a cabaret performer or playwright or actor, is often I do think, what is it? What do I have to offer this particular thing? As opposed to what about this will I not be able to do? But just what do I have to offer? And that's a helpful way of looking at things. And so I think in college, I think right away I felt that I had something to offer as far as playing a female character with a truth and a complexity. Because really in my embryonic form doing this play for the first time at Northwestern, I was basically all there, I think, as a performer. I think I've greatly refined what I've done, and I've learned and I've grown and shaped, but the essence of who I was, I think, was there at the very first performance.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic.
It was right. It was the right place for me. This is who I was and what I best had to offer.
Yeah, nice. So I was looking across your website, and like Sister Act was maybe like in some of your early plays, I think it was listed like second or third. I'm just wondering, do you remember which of the shows that you wrote was the first production you received? Like, when was the first time you wrote a play and it was on stage?
Sister Act.
Sister Act.
In college, yes.
And And
yeah. And then we did it for like 2 nights there, and then I graduated, and we did 2 nights on a. It was a place that was actually a puppet theater, so you can imagine the stage was rather small. We did it in the puppet theater. Everybody's very small. And then when I graduated, I stayed in Chicago for 2 more years because I just wasn't ready to come back to New York, and I was just trying to figure things out. So there was a new wave, kind of gay new wave club called La Mère Vipère in Chicago, and I somehow got them to allow me to, before anybody arrived at 8 o'clock or so, whatever, to put on a play. And again, the stage was just a platform in the corner of this big kind of disco room, but it was the wall slanted, so we had to kind of act like this when he got to that side of the stage. Yeah, and it was a spoof of. It was very short. It was 40 minutes. Spoof of this old 1940s Betty Davis, Miriam Hopkins movie called Old Acquaintance, and so I called it Old Koozies. So we did that for two nights. So I was just really just doing things, my own stuff, and
yeah,
and it never bothered me. I don't know. It's funny. I've never been a snob about where to perform, thank God, because I've played at some very peculiar places, including last year. I know it's funny. So I've been reading about this thing that's in the theater. There might be the answer is that the audience will have to be 6 feet away from each other. I've done it. It doesn't work. That was South Bend, Indiana, 2 years ago. I booked my act. I'm Madame Rose here. I booked my act at a community theater in South Bend, Indiana, and we weren't even on the main stage of the community theater. We were in a smaller alternative space. We didn't even rate the main stage.
Wow.
In South Bend, Indiana. And,
good for comedy.
So there was nobody came. There were 6 feet between each people. It doesn't work.
No. Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Well, so my follow-up, Charles, to that you basically just answered was in regards to your first production, did you have an agent that got you that production? Did you have a regional theater that was kind and supporting of you at that point? I'm saying this because there are a lot of writers who are tuned in right now who think that that's the model, right?
For many people it is.
Sometimes it is, but it's not the only model.
I wish it had been my model. No. It's like I came up in a kind of vaudeville in a crazy way, and no, I just didn't, because I didn't pursue the normal route. So I just started just putting on shows. I would just find some place where they'd never done a play before, and it didn't usually last very long because they realized that they still didn't want me. But I would do plays in movie theaters after the last show. We come out in front of the screen and be doing this play, and yeah. So and it never bothered me. I must have been like an old carny or something in a previous lifetime, because I just always thought it was sort of fun and an adventure to put on a play.
It is fun
in a strange place and for no money, and just do it. I thought it was fun, and so I never would lie. If somebody asked me, so where are you doing your play? I wouldn't try to puff it up and say, it's a theater that's, I would just tell you the truth because I thought it was funny.
Sure.
We were doing things in odd places, and you just never know. And of course, my big break turned out to be, because I wanted to just put on a show in this weird art gallery bar, performance space in Avenue C, and it turned out to be my lucky break. But I didn't think of it as like going into it that way. I just thought it'd be fun to do for a weekend, put on this play in this weird, funky space. I just think as an end in itself, I just thought it was fun. And
yeah. So is that play Vampire Lesbians of Sodom?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good segue to bring on our first guest. Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
Kathy was there from the very beginning. She knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
We're out.
Fantastic. Terry Stratton, who's our invisible stage manager. Oh, good. She's already on it. Amazing. Thank you, Terry. Yes, great. So here comes Catherine Carr. So Catherine Carr, if I am I the one who's supposed to be introducing you? I don't know. I've lost
Can
my
I
place.
introduce her?
Yes,
Sure.
thank you.
We'd love that.
Hi.
Thank you.
Well, Kathy Carr is just my dear friend. She's really my sister at this point because we met in 1983. And as I said, she knows where the bodies are buried. And she was not only the wig designer for every play I've ever done, but she was the secretary of Theater in Limbo. I was the vice president. And, so anyway, so I don't make a move without her. Anyway, so there she is, Catherine Carr.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for asking me. Hi, Amanda.
Yeah.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi, nice to meet you, Joey and Christine.
You too.
Nice to meet you too.
Can you tell us how you got started designing wigs?
Oh, yes. I never intended to. I was a stage manager when I met Charles, and he was doing a solo show, and the producers asked me if I would be the stage manager for a show. So I said yes, and we became friends and stayed friends after the show was over. And then when he booked the Limbo Lounge for Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, he held up this ratty old matted wig and said, "Can you do something with this?" And I grew up wearing beehives and flips and all these wild hairdos myself, and I love old movies, so I know period hair. And that's how I started. I just dove in and started teasing.
So you had no experience with wigs or hair or anything?
Just my own hair. And
wow.
One of my first, I came out of the corporate world, actually. I was 33 before I even started stage managing. Someone said, "You'd be a good stage manager. My friend's doing a show and she needs one." And I said, "Oh, okay." And that's how I started that.
Wow.
I always accept challenges. I think it's good to just dive into things sometimes. So, and that's how I started. No, it was, I used to do the hair for the women in the office sometimes when they had functions like baby showers or weddings, tease their hair, but that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, because these wigs are spectacular. I wish we had pictures of
so
them.
Great.
So beautiful.
I can get some. No.
Go get them.
The thing was, each thing got more complicated because, first when we were just going to do the play for this weekend, so she just kind of took this ratty old wig of mine and, tried to do something with it. And then, and so, but then, the next time around, she got a little more ambitious and thought, oh, maybe, what if we took, a foam cord and wrap the hair around it, or what if I, sewed two wigs together? So she just kind of figured it all out. And
for Psycho Beach Party, he needed pigtails, and so I got switches, and I sewed a part in, and I did all kinds of things. Made him a little girl.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was challenging, and Charles and I have a ball just talking about how we see the character and research and looking up old movie stars. And I used to think my wigs were really over the top, but some of the old movies, the hair in that were just outrageous. Made my wigs look calm.
So you met in 1983, is that what you said?
Yes, 1983.
Can you say how many different productions you guys have created together?
oh, I can't imagine. 25 or something.
I posted everything. I do websites. I did his website, so everything's there.
Okay, well we can.
Maybe 25, maybe, if I was just going to guess, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. And I was stage manager for all of our productions through Psycho Beach Party. And then after that, I just did wigs. But for vampires, because we had Sleeping Beauty or Coma as a curtain raiser, and then Vampire Lesbians, there were 25 wigs in those shows. So I had to do stage managing.
Wow.
So she had to prepare those wigs every night, 25 wigs, and then call the show as well.
Oh my God.
And in our really early days for Theodora, I actually draped some costumes on people and sewed together some things because I sew.
We had wigs before we had costumes or a set.
Absolutely.
That was the thing. Because the Limbo Lounge had no stage. So we were just kind of in this space, in the audience sitting on the floor, and so there's no set because there's no stage. And later they moved to a bigger space and it became a little slightly more formal. But yeah, so the first thing we had were the wigs, and then Kathy and I would just when we did Vampire Lesbians the first time at the Limbo Lounge. I had kind of a box full of old drag shit that I had from Chicago, and it was just kind of sequin tube tops and rehearsal skirts and things, and trying to piece something together. One thing in putting on a play for no money, if you're doing period, also I wrote the things according to the zero budget.
Sure.
Vampires was $34.50 for postage to send out some flyers. Really what we spent.
Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. It looks like Charles is frozen at the moment, but I do have a question for you, Kathy.
Yes.
What are some of the
is ancient world you could do wait, I think we went off something. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you. Yeah. You were frozen for a moment. You're back.
I picked the ancient world because it could be sort of G-strings and not much clothes. And then the second scene was in the 20s because again we could if you get the basic historic silhouette, then they get the gist. And so the 20s, we figured, took a slip, put it underneath the ingenue and put a sash on it. So it had kind of a 20s look or, stuff like that. Until then finally we Ken Elliott, who was producing, directing, and acting in the shows, he hooked us up with John Glazer, who was a very experienced costume designer who upgraded us. And then eventually when we went off Broadway, they were, gorgeous clothes because we had a real budget to work with.
Yeah.
I used to go shopping in the vintage shops too on Broadway down the Village and get Charles clothes sometimes there.
Oh, what was that terrible thing I did to that poor woman? How'd that go?
This woman was trying on this red dress he wore in Vampires.
It was like we were in one of those like antique clothing stores, and there was this gorgeous red crepe 1940s gown, and it was just perfect what I needed. And it was kind of sort of big size. I'm 5'7", so it's I could see. And this woman was trying it on first, and and I just did terrible. Kathy and I were just watching her trying it on, hoping she wouldn't take it, and so I was really awful. I was kind of watching, pretending to be sympathetic, and she was looking at me, nice gay boy, what do you think? She didn't take it. Grab it, get it. Give me it. Sew it up. Terrible.
Oh my gosh. I was just going to ask you, Kathy, what are some of the considerations and challenges you've encountered working with Charles?
On his plays.
On his plays.
Besides his terrible temper.
Sorry.
Yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was doing a wig for him, and for the reading of Die Mommy Die, and he was standing behind me. I said, Charles, I can hear you right now, because Charles always has. Can we? He sticks his fingers in things. That's my biggest challenge.
As far as the
comedy routine.
But Kathy, as far as I think, like with what show, was there a particular show we've done that where the wigs were particularly, challenged for you? Or?
So actually, in general, though, we have to soften his forehead a little bit because he has that very strong forehead, and always.
I know about the strong forehead.
And then make sure the neck is a little bit always have some hair around here. Make sure the neck is a little bit more feminine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the only chance.
Interesting.
What about like in the other costumes, or just like the rest of the cast, or was there a particular period that we did that was more difficult, or?
Well, mostly it's my challenges sometimes are, I guess my biggest challenge is, although now we have more of a budget, but in the earlier days, you know, we were working with wigs that sometimes were $10 and $15. Sure. Whereas now I have lace fronts sometimes, not always, but and it's getting, and especially since this is not, I wasn't trained to do this, and it's all synthetics, and it's without a wig oven. How do you get it to set and stay? And you know, those are my challenges. As far as people, when you're dealing with the women, it's not too bad. Julie, though, I did have a challenge with Julie. And Julie has, as I do, has a very small head. Right? So she was understudying McGann, who did not have a small head. And she had to go on one night and wear her wigs. So I actually had to build a little head for Julie, like of hair underneath, so the wig would fit her head.
Wow.
But then one time she had to go on, because it was kind of crazy when we first started doing shows, and Julie was the leading lady who was playing opposite me, but she had a big job a career on Wall Street as a corporate librarian. And so then when we were going to move off Broadway to do 8 shows a week, she couldn't do both. And as far as she knew, our show might have closed overnight. We only had enough money to go through opening night. So she decided to keep her job and become the understudy. And she connected us with the wonderful actress, McGann Robinson, who then did the show, and Julie understudied. Then McGann who eventually died young, began having health issues, and so Julie went on a lot. And I think the very first time, though, it was sort of a panic. We weren't expecting her to go on, and she the wigs couldn't fit her, you know. And so in the first part, it was set in Maud London. And so Julie just said, cut my hair. And I guess you must have been in the booth or something, because I was taking the scissors myself. I felt awful just cutting her hair into kind of like sort of a sassoon. I don't know how to fucking cut hair, but I just somehow, just cut it. And that's a trooper, right?
Yes.
So I said, okay, just cut it. It looked pretty good, you know?
It's true.
Well, that was very much our ethos back then. Yeah, just do it.
I mean, of our shows, Red Scare, I think, was the biggest challenge style-wise, because I wanted to stay true to the 50s hairdos, but they're not very flattering. And we had to make Charles, you know, a hairdo that was true to the period, sort of, but, you know, still flattering for a man wearing the hairdo. Yes. Of course, after several years, we hinted period now. We don't always do perfect period.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's listen. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No.
I was going to say, let's bring on Carl.
Okay.
Who's here? Hi, Carl.
Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Where are you?
He's here.
Oh.
I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Carl.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Gina.
Carl Andres.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Hey, Charles. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Carl.
I think we figured out that Queen Amarantha was the first show you worked on together. Is that right?
Yes, that was the first play we did together, but I actually met Charles in 1995 when he took over the leading lady role in a musical he wrote called Swing Time Canteen.
Right.
And I met him because I moved to New York and had a series of strange jobs and just desperately wanted to be in the theater, so I figured I'd do anything, and whether I was on stage or off stage, and I talked my way into becoming the replacement wardrobe supervisor and hair person, and I made replacement costumes. I was making more money than the actors. It was really quite a racket. And then a couple months into the run, the leading lady, who was Allison Fraser, left to do another show when her contract was up, and Charles Busch took over. And so we were sort of the only guys in the sort of all-female production. It was all-female cast, musicians, backstage, really wonderful. And so that's how I met Charles, and we sort of became really good friends, and then sort of protege mentor. And 2 years later, he said, you know, I'm going to write a role for you in this play. And then we kept talking about the story so much that he said, well, I think we should do it together. I think we should direct it together. And he booked it for us. Wow. And so we did that in 1997. Yeah. And we've been doing plays ever since then.
That's so amazing.
So that was your first time being a director too?
It was, you know, I really, you know, I grew up sort of with my mother was a very glamorous lady from New York who grew up in New Hampshire and was in the Miss America pageant. You know, can you imagine a Brooklyn girl becoming Miss New Hampshire? They had to teach her how to talk without her New York accent. It's very funny. But we would always go to the theater, and she was sort of did a lot of community theater and was always Mary and the Librarian, and you know, that's all the big soprano roles. And so I just that was what really captured my imagination, and I just wanted to be in the theater. And the way you can get into the theater early on when you don't know what to do is you can audition and you can be in a play if you're fortunate. So I was in plays, I was backstage, I went to college, and I just thought, you know, I'm going to try to be an actor. But it was Charles who actually, in just our 2 years of friendship before we did the play, we just sort of collaborated on a lot of his appearances in benefits and various appearances. And he was the one who said, you know, I think you're a director. And then he gave me the opportunity to prove it.
Amazing.
So that's a true friend and a true mentor.
That is.
Yeah.
That is.
There was a period in the 90s where, you know, when I would be asked to be on, like, you know, at the Drama Desk Awards, or I'd be, or whatever, or perform at the MTC Gala, I was sort of too insecure in those days just to do it as myself. So I was always in drag, it seems like, and sometimes it really was the wrong move, but I did just out of insecurity. It was easier for me to kind of be this sort of faux grande dame, and because of that, there was always choices to be made of what I was going to wear and what exactly I was going to do. And so I had this young kid around, you know, who had this wonderful taste and judgment, and so I just started, you know, and then in a way I was also your live Barbie doll that you kind of enjoyed going through the drag class. And no, I think you should wear this dress, try this one on, and just, you know, and then we would often get there, like, and I'd have him seated during the tech rehearsal, seated there, and he'd then whisper, you know, the lighting, they don't have you in the right light, and I thought, I would be doing an old monologue that I'd done 1 million times, and then for this benefit, and then they would say to me, "Oh, can you just edit out the middle section of it that I'd done?" You know, about you know, I didn't know what to do, and Carl would say, "You can't let them do it. You'll blow it. You'll totally go up in your line." So I just began really depending on this young man's judgment, and he was so smart that I thought, well, you know, he's really, you know, with it. He's just direct the play.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. I had no idea. That's so cool to know.
Well, just like Kathy was saying, that her collaboration with Charles is a lot of discussion, and we have the same interests, and we know a lot of the same things, and we're coming at it from the same place. So it's a lot of discussion about the whole play, and that's the other side. Charles will have an idea of a character. He'll come up with a story, and then our relationship grew into being that of sort of me being his sounding board and sort of dramaturg as director. And that's really how I like to function. You know, I like doing new work because I like to work with the writer, and I like to help them achieve what their goals are. And that, you know, so and as Charles said, what did he have to offer as an actor? You know, Kathy said, what did I have to offer as somebody who knew how to work with wigs? You know, it's like, what do I have to offer? How can I help? So we all sort of approach these projects with that, you know, how do we achieve the goal?
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that, you know, with Carl, we, you know, his involvement as director starts from the very beginning. Just even sometimes even the choice of what the story is going to be. You know, I sort of say, oh, I think it'd be interesting, like with Lily Dare, the last play we did. Just I'd like to play this kind of, do a mother love story, kind of like a Stella Dallas kind of story, and we just started talking about it, and while I'm, you know, even outlining it, we'll be discussing different possibilities and who should be in it and what kind of play. You know, we're really sort of making this together, you know, and as I'm writing it, and I show him stuff, you know, Carl will say, because I think we wanted Nancy Anderson to be in Lily Dare from the very beginning, and then, you know, while I'm still writing it, you know, Carl will say, you know, Nancy kind of disappears toward the end of the play, and, you know, I don't think she's gonna like that. and it's better. It's gonna be, don't you think you should bring Emily Lou back? And I said, yes, you're right. And
Yeah.
So he's so involved right from the start, and even Kathy too. In a way, we go over the wigs almost before the play is written. Sometimes just what I want to look like and how we're gonna.
Well, and then that, because if Kathy would tell Charles, like, well, that's got to be a change. You can't wear it. You can't do, you know, 2 looks in one thing. Charles will then know, oh, I have to write a scene in between because I got to get out of that wig.
Yes.
You know,
It seems like you all have the same, like, North Star, you know, when you're creating.
And Charles always says to me, honey, there's not going to be too many wigs in this show. Sorry, you don't have much to do. And there's never less than 10 or 12.
There's always the day where Kathy calls me up and she says that Charles said it would be 4 wigs. It's 20.
Speaking of wigs, that's not.
I love that segue.
Let's bring on Jennifer Van Dyke, who is a relative newcomer in this crowd. Jennifer has become a frequent actor in your plays and just won the 2020 Outer Critics Circle Award for Outstanding Featured Actress in a Play. I know her best as my pal from Brown and the most talented person in James Barnhill's acting class. Please welcome Jennifer Van Dyke.
Yay! So unmute.
There I am. Hi, friends.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Oh my God, this is so much fun. I wish we were all having dinner together after this. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
It would be the best, yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm delighted to be here. This has been so much fun to listen to and watch so far, and I have to say, I've heard some new stories, and that's always fun.
Oh, nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start before we like really dig in here. I want to start first with how did you start acting, and then take us from there to how did you first start acting in a Charles Busch play?
Once upon a time.
Settle back, everybody.
All right. Well,
Yes,
I always wanted to be an actor. I always knew this is what I wanted to do. I think there was a brief period when I was 4 years old where I was going to be a tightrope walker. And I practiced going around our living room rug balancing, and I realized, no, I really want to be an actor. So that's where it began. And of course, you know, it is tightrope walking. What else is acting? So I was put on plays in my backyard and was in plays in school. And I went to jumping ahead to meeting Amanda Green. We went to college together, and I was always. I mean, Brown was an incredible education, but I also did as many plays as I possibly could, and worked all the time. And then my professional career began very serendipitously, which is that I was taking voice lessons outside of Brown with a wonderful teacher, Margot Cheville, and her husband was a playwright, and he was affiliated sometimes with Trinity Rep, which was the theater in Providence, which still is this incredible theater, where I had ushered my entire Brown career, because this teacher that Amanda spoke about, Professor Barnhill, who is still with us at the age of 98, he just celebrated, or 95, something, he's amazing. Anyway, he said to me, in freshman year, it's very clear you're going to be an actress, but while you're at Brown, you need to study with all these other teachers. And he gave me a list of all, political science, economy, history, an amazing gift. And I couldn't even begin to study with all of them. It was a list that was too long. And he said, and you need to go down the hill and usher at Trinity while you're here. So I would walk down the hill and see as many shows as I could. It never dawning on me that they ever invited anyone to their company. They were a resident company. So it didn't occur to me. Anyway, I'm at the end of my Brown time, I'm studying voice, and Margaret Chaville says, you should go introduce yourself to Adrian Hall, who was the artistic director's assistant. And so I go and have a meeting. I didn't know what that meant. Then I boldly was doing a play called A Kind of Alaska, a Pinter play that I'm only now the right age to play. But, you know, you're in college, you play all the parts. And I invited her to come see my little play that I was doing up the hill. She came and she brought Richard Jenkins, who was a wonderful actor there and then became the artistic director. You all know him from film now, but an incredible, anyway, they saw me in a play that I was totally inappropriate for, asked me to audition for The Crucible that Richard was directing. And I literally finished, I was finishing mid-year because I'd taken a semester off, finished like December 23rd, started rehearsal for The Crucible December 26th, and started my professional career at Trinity Rep, which was the best training a person could have. I was working with actors who'd been together for 20, 25 years, who had this shorthand and who did every, you know, the classics, the new, the old, it was an amazing launching point. And then do I jump to How I Met Charles, or is that later?
Sure. Charles was playing Goody Proctor in that production of The Crucible, am I right?
Oh my God.
That's hilarious.
Well, you know,
Jen has an incredible career. She's done TV and film and theater, and she's where did you just play Amanda in Glass Menagerie? Where was that?
Guthrie.
At the Guthrie.
Guthrie.
We went out to see her. She was extraordinary.
Has an illustrious career. Let's just
That's
say.
Christine's stomping ground too.
Oh,
Yeah, I love it there
Guthrie?
so much. Yes, I love it so much.
you guys should know each other. I feel
We
like.
should have. Well, yes,
We
now
know
we
of each
do.
other.
Okay.
Yeah, and here we are. Here we are. Yeah. No, I mean, look, careers are accidents at every step of the way. I mean, like, that's what they are. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to happen. The things you think will happen don't. The things you don't think will. Which brings me to, you know, so jump from, I didn't meet Charles until 2008.
Yeah.
I lived in, so I worked at Trinity and I toured with a show, but anyway, I've been in New York for 30, you know, a long time, since 87. And you know, people have, Amanda, perhaps you will find this entertaining, but people have always thought I'm a very serious person, which is, anyway, you know, I played Ophelia, Cordelia, Amelia, all the IA roles. I played, you know, a lot of Shakespeare and Ibsen and serious stuff, which I adore because the language is incredible. And I always had heard of Charles Busch, but I never saw any of Charles's work. And I had never met Charles until I walked into the door at Chelsea Casting in 2008 to audition for a play called The Third Story that was being done at La Jolla that Carl was directing. And
we couldn't cast this role. We couldn't cast this role.
Well, like I said, careers are made up of accidents. They literally, you don't know.
We were seeing so many people, and we were very specific of what we wanted, and we weren't finding it anybody else because we hadn't met Jennifer Van Dyke yet. And so Charles was telling Julie Halston one day, we had just cast the leading man, Jonathan Walker, who happened to be married to this wonderful actress who said, who Julie said, well, you know who's wonderful, probably be perfect for that part is Jonathan's wife.
They live in my building.
They live in the same building, so we asked them to bring Jennifer in.
Wow.
She walked in the door, said 3 words, and Charles and I were like, we have to cast her. Offer it to her now.
You said you waited a month? How's that possible?
That is still, again, one of the mysteries of theater.
I think it was timing. We cast Jonathan very early, and we weren't going to La Jolla for a long time. So I bet it was just like caught up in like paperwork or somebody didn't make the phone call, but just.
So I knew I didn't have the job. I was like, Jonathan's going off for the summer. I'll come out and visit. And then I get the call to play Constance Hudson, a mad scientist in this movie within the play, which is the beginning of a long loop-de-loo association with Charles, where I play movie actresses in plays. I play old women. I play little boys. I play trouser roles. I play,
old men.
yeah, I play a set of twins, male and female twins. I mean, it's been, Charles has given me opportunities, and Charles and Carl, in terms of the way these things have been directed, incredible roles with language that I should die for. I mean, Charles, you cannot. The sentences that Charles constructs, you have to like. They are very muscular and they're very musical, and they eventually roll off the tongue, but not initially. And yet when it gets into your muscles, it is the most pleasurable language a person could ever hope to say on stage.
You know, Jennifer's so adept because of her classical background that in each of our shows, I always write her some very long monologue. Kind of a trademark where in some plays there's kind of a whole set piece where it's just kind of the play stops and she does a couple pages of this big aria that just goes on, and it's so marvelous. So
and it started with the third story, and Charles wrote this incredible speech, and it was really hard to find somebody who could do it, and Jennifer she floored us, and it was an incredible moment in that play.
Yeah,
and to echo what Kathy said, the whole wig, the wig change, I learned very quickly that I was often given chunks of text in order for Charles to make his costume change. And, it was like, and I get the script and I'd go, okay, so what are you, oh, you're switching out of her and into him. Oh, right, okay. And lucky me, I was the lucky, I would benefit from Charles's elaborate costume changes because I get
right.
You've had quite a few of your own, especially in Lily Dare.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Four wigs. Charles had
so
5.
Delicious.
Then there were some others, but yeah, she had quite a bunch of them.
The other thing is too, you know, with actors, I love writing for specific actors. I love being inspired by it. So now, ever since I met Jennifer, as I said, before I figure out the whole plot, I have a list of who I want to hang out with, and she's so much fun to be with. So I just kind of want to hang out with her for those few months. So then try and figure, okay, what can I give to challenge Jennifer? And I had often had so many of my plays had men playing female characters, but really only once before I had made an attempt of having a woman play a male character. But Jennifer has a kind of marvelous of Katharine Hepburn sort of quality that I started writing trouser roles for her. And we did a play at Theatre of the New Sea called Judith of Bethulia, and it was the ancient world, and so she played the dashing young poet. And, it was marvelous. And then we did Cleopatra, and I think Jennifer is the only actor who's ever had to play Octavian and his sister Octavia at the same time. Wonderful. Totally fearless act. She will try. Jennifer Van Dyke, she will try anything. She will try, she'll give it her best.
I love it.
She will try.
Yeah.
With my inspired colleagues. I mean, I do remember moments of many moments of sheer terror. I mean, the other part of Charles's work is that it is so thrilling, and it is, I mean, I'm always scared. Like, you have to be scared. I mean, being in the theater is scary, stage fright, etc. But I have had moments of sheer panic, and one of them was in the third story, where I remember Carl, you taking me aside and saying, you have to understand, you are an actress, you, Jennifer, are an actress playing an actress in a movie that is in the play that is, and it was like these layers of, so I'm playing Constance Hudson, but I'm really another actress in a movie that's having a competition with the actress that, it was this mind, can I swear?
Yeah. Sure.
It was a mind fuck. It was like, how do I do this? And then again, the words always take over. So as soon as I get out of my own way up here, trying to figure out what the machinations are of the triple identity I'm undertaking, and then you just live it. But the other one that was equally terrifying in another whole way was in Cleopatra, where for Octavian, the boy twin, there was this idea that I was playing a sort of a very gay, fey, young fellow. And, you know, I'm kind of, I don't know, can I say it? Charles calls me a Swedish lesbian. I mean, I've got kind of a, he refers to my style that way. Look, I dressed for it today. But anyway, I'm kind of physically, I don't know how to describe myself, but I was not this gay, fey, young boy. And it wasn't until we came up.
You tried.
It was awful. You tried.
I was so bad.
Your game. But you made it your own. You found a way in that was better than the idea that we thought, you know, was the way into the role. Yeah. But that's collaboration.
It was collaboration, but it was literally finding the voice. It was finding the voice of this character who was sort of Roddy McDowell, kind of. We were kind of going with the.
Yes.
We not that, like, I'm not an imitator, but I just had to have an image and then again let my brain go away and then let the body take over. And but in those, I do remember those rehearsals where every day I had a different melody, a different voice. It was really bad. It was bad.
Yeah, we knew you get it eventually, but it was. Yeah, but I
had to make it your own. Is really the truth of that, you know.
But I thought I was just so impressed that how willing you were to make a fool of yourself, you know, in rehearsal room. Because I don't know if I would have that kind of just, I'll try. I think I'd be more, it's like, no, I can't do it. No, but you just try. It would be awful, but you try, and then eventually, you've just figured out, it's a better idea than we had.
Well,
Big on faith.
I remember when we were starting rehearsals for Lily Dare at Theater of the New City, and it was our first time working with Nancy Anderson, and she was a little hesitant about how to jump in, how to dive in, what the tone was, what the style was.
I can imagine,
but she was watching Jennifer, and she said, it wasn't until we were sort of in front of our first audience that she said, it clicked. Everything I saw Jennifer do in rehearsal, all of her fearlessness, all of her trying, knowing that there wasn't just the one way to say it or do it, she was, because she's like a surgeon. She's really trying to understand comedy, understand what's going on. And she told me that she studied you, Jennifer, and your example of how you attacked this material and found your way in. And when she heard the audience response, she then understood when I would say, like, keep the energy through to the end of the line, don't break it up. And she realized that was like singing, and that she had to breathe in a certain way. And she heard what you said about the muscular language, and you were the object lesson that she was following. Because
I have to say that's thrilling, but I also have to point it back to Charles, where an incredible thing about collaborating with Charles is that you wear a writer hat and then you wear an actor hat, and ne'er the twain shall meet. So when we're rehearsing together, I'm working with a sublime actor and a scene partner. And then when we're not rehearsing and we're sitting in the rehearsal room and I have a question about a chunk of text or how do you hear this? And then you completely, you become the playwright and are clear and incredibly precise about what your intentions are. And there are times where I've said, I think there's comedy in this, and you will say to me, no, there's not comedy in that line. The comedy is in that line, or the stress is not on that syllable, it's on this syllable. And your precision as a playwright, then immediately, then we get up and we do a scene, and I'm with my acting partner again. And I don't actually know how you do that, because
it's the same with me. It's the same. He does the same thing with me. When he's an actor, he's an actor. When he's a writer, he's a writer, and he can turn on a dime.
I think what's I mean, all of you together, I mean, the Charles Busch joint is like, there's a lot of silliness, but it's all so rigorous and so disciplined. And, everybody in your troupe is a really, really good actor. And they go for the, whatever, I mean, they're absolutely like Jennifer Van Dyke. You have to go balls out, but there's so much rigor and so much, there's nothing there's nothing slapdash about your production values, your wigs, your acting, your language. So that's what I think makes it so.
Yeah, if anybody ever says we're sort of raffish, we get we get a little hurt. We were like,
well, you should.
what do you mean? We worked really hard for that.
I just wanted to ask a question. I know we're sort of running out of time, but you know, it's amazing to listen to all of you talk to each other and see the trust you have with each other and the real chemistry you have. And I wondered if there is one thing that you think is the thread that leads you together. What is it that makes you tick? Is it a shared, I think that the answer is yes to all this because of listening to you, but shared work ethic, a shared aesthetic point of view. Is there one thing that you each think is the most important piece that binds you together?
I think it's fine. It starts with Charles and his desire to find the joy in putting on a play. It's about the joy, and if it gets too serious, if it gets too rough, he's like, I'm out. Like he loses the interest. But as long as that joy and that thread, even if there's disagreement, as long as we can get back there, people are going to have a hard time. People are people. But for me, it's always about let's keep the joy of putting on a play for the audience.
I think so. I think even in our early productions, which were done on no budget, we had fun. That was the main thing. Although we always had a professional attitude about it and we're serious about the work, but we had fun doing it. It was a joy, just like Carl said. You want to keep that. I think that's what it is.
And I'll just add that I have never laughed as much as I have in a Busch Andres production in rehearsal. Now on stage, it is lethally serious. I don't know how much I can stress that comedy is very serious, but as Charles said, but that can't be the overriding. That's not the experience of making it. The experience of making it is full of trust and joy and ridiculous hilarity, which is totally why I've always felt safe to be an idiot when we're putting this together, because that's required. But then that takes trust and that takes joy, and then it takes precision and utter seriousness in the actual making and the actual doing of it, with lots of giggles backstage.
Jennifer had to get slapped in the last play, and we didn't want you to get hurt. So we were, but it also made me laugh. And she's like, no, you hit me. But, we had to be very, very serious about how it was going to be funny. And we learned, when it wouldn't be.
And if we masked it, if we did a fake one, it wouldn't have been funny. And right. it actually had to be. And, it's an infinitesimal moment. But if it's wrong, the audience notices. If it's right, it rolls. You know what I mean?
If it was wrong, it didn't set up the rest of your scene. And that was the importance of it, as well as the safety. And that's why you and Borg were so serious about it. But that's the precision. I think a small example of the precision you're talking about in the hilarity.
It was Lily Dare, The Confession of Lily Dare. It was a very tricky play because we went from outrageous comedy to drama and sort of deep kind of sentimental pathos, and it kept flipping. And the audience had to always be confident of exactly what that tone was. And it took highly skilled playing, and everybody in the cast were actors capable of doing that. Because it could have been really deadly if when suddenly we really wanted to be a tearjerker, if people started laughing inappropriately, the whole thing would just fall apart. And particularly with Jennifer and I had in the last part of the play, we just kept flipping it and getting a big laugh, and then really hearing people in the audience sniffling, but then we go for another laugh and then bring them down, and it was just a marvelous experience with two of us really walking this kind of tightrope and having to every performance slightly alter it a bit according to the response of the audience. If they're really a giddy, campy audience, it would be made more difficult to we're being totally serious here, and so we used every trick in the book of pauses and rest stops and various things to
Like Charles has always talked throughout the years about, like, you know, somebody who's like, oh, you know, he's a comedy killer, or, you know, like, oh, that he's just stumping on my laughs. And this time he said, I would use some of how people could kill comedy. I used everything they ever did in order to quell a laugh where I didn't want them to laugh at what the character was going through.
And it was tricky because there were times, like sometimes I would get a laugh and I'd think, why? A couple times somebody's just so, they were enjoying it so much and they were so into this kind of old movie style. And at one point I did something which I thought was a very touching moment with Jennifer. I sort of whispered something to her, and this one person started laughing, and it really pissed me off. But I thought, oh, I think I've tipped it. I think he's laughing because I'm nailing it so exactly what an old actress would have done in this sort of noble moment. And so next night I toned it down a bit. But I guess, you know, really, I guess we should wind this thing up, right? But just a big thing is I've had a very odd career, and it gets more strange today. You know, I feel in some ways I've removed myself from, over and over, I keep removing myself from different areas of show business, you know, and, you know, because I found it unpleasant or too tense, or, you know, I was writing TV pilots for a while, but I just didn't like that world, so I stopped that. And you know, even, you know, books to musicals, you know, I know in the theater that's the way to make a killing if you really, you know, make it. But I found it very difficult in being opening the doors to so many people, and it just was hard. So I kind of separated myself from that, and so really I'm surrounded by this extraordinary cocoon of love, you know, and I just work with people who love me and who I love them, and in the most pure, true sense. And so there's never an issue, there's never a argument, there's never there's so little tension of, you know, and even for the most part, I removed myself from critics. You know, we've done so many plays that there have invited no critics, and it was just because we wanted to keep this kind of pure sense of the love of this. I'm very fortunate that I have a devoted audience that just without reading about the play, they just know that we're going to be doing it, and so it's just it's a rather remarkable thing. It's just this kind of love is all I can say, and so it's so pure and so wonderful, but it's a strange little world I've created, but I adore it.
I think it's so inspiring. I think it's really fantastic. And I have to say that, you know, the one of the collaborators, the important collaborators that you've all referred to at some point, is the audience being the last collaborator, right? And the one that's always sort of telling you, oh, that's not quite working, this is working. And that love that you create, I love that you said that you when you sit down to write a play, that you think, who do I want to play with for the next little bit? Oh. And it feels a bit like a party. And as an audience member, it feels like we get to be a guest at that party as well. And so that love transcends and it goes out to the audience. And I love that. I really appreciate that so much. Mm-hmm. And I just want to reiterate something for the writers who are here, for our viewers who think that the only path from page to production is an MFA from a prestigious writing program and the right agent and the right theater who believes in you. I hope you find it a different example and a different path through the work of Charles Busch.
Charles always says, get yourself a good group of friends to collaborate with.
Find talented friends. Yeah. You know, that's the thing. It's not good enough to have friends. You have to have talented friends.
No, I got it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Nice, talented.
Talented friends who know more than you do. You know. And,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
What a pleasure and an honor to be here. I so appreciate your time.
Thank you, Catherine Carr.
Thank you.
Carl Andrus.
That's right. And Jennifer Van Dyke.
and the
Thank you
divine
so
Charles
much.
Busch. Thank you so much, you guys. This was wonderful.
It's such joy. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
we want to say
you.
thank you to the staff of the Dramatist Guild, of course, Sarah Rebell and Zach Turner.
Who else do we need to thank? Oh,
Lily
Boskin and Emmanuel Wilson. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to the magical Miss Terry Stratton behind the scenes. And thanks to my co-hosts, Amanda Green and Christine Tway Johnson. I can't do this without you. And thank you to our viewers for joining us. We will see you soon. Be well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.